Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and I am so excited to have my guest, Jennifer Herrod, on my show. Jennifer is a breast nurse navigator with the nonprofit Project 31. Not only does she have clinical breast cancer experience, but personal experience with breast cancer. She is a 7-year breast cancer survivor. Wow. And Jennifer and I actually met in San Antonio in December at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, where I met so many amazing people. Jennifer just happens to be one of my fellow breast cancer advocates and is doing great work in the breast cancer space. Jennifer, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm so excited to be here. I am doing great, and it was such a pleasure to meet you at SABCS and just had so much fun, and I'm so excited to be joining you today.
Great. That's that was my first time there, and I was blown away at what it was all about. I'd heard of it in the last couple of years, but I had no idea the impact that it would have on my life. I was able to actually meet people in person that I've already interviewed on the podcast. And then, of course, I sat and talked to so many people in the Advocacy Lounge and had lunch with them and coffee with them and went by and visited all the booths and things like that, which is where you were too. And I came home with so many contacts that I get to reach out to and be in this such an important space. And so thank you. I really appreciate that. And the fact that, not that people have to have breast cancer to be in this space, but you have that clinical experience and personal experience. So usually what I ask survivors anyway, I ask them who they were before breast cancer, because we know that things change dramatically. And so who was Jennifer before breast cancer?
So that's a great question that I never thought of even asking, but it's so important. I was a nurse in the operating room at a local VA hospital. I was extremely active. I probably the healthiest I'd been in my life up until that point. I was running half marathons. I was really confident in my body. Um, I'd only been married to my husband for 2 years at that time, and I was a bonus mom to two teenage girls, and the girls had lost their mother actually a month before my husband and I had gotten married. Their mother had gone through an 8-year battle with metastatic breast cancer. And caring for my father, who'd been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And we were living in an apartment because we had lost our house and our animals and just everything to a house fire 6 months earlier. So I was really just in a very stressful state at that point in my life. A lot of upheaval and stress, and then got diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was kind of that 1-2 punch.
Wow. Well, Jennifer, I want to hold some space here for a couple of things. Number one, the girls had lost their mother to breast cancer.
Hmm.
Whoa. And by the way, um, I'm a bonus mom too, to three kids. But their mom had passed away of breast cancer, and then later on, their bonus mom
Yeah.
is diagnosed with breast cancer. Wow, that's a lot, and that is, I'm sure, very emotional for your children, your daughters, right?
It really was. It was hard for them because they'd just gone through so much all at one time, losing their mother, then losing their house, their belongings, their memories, their pets, and I still get teary-eyed just thinking about that period in my life, but it was so hard for them. And then to get the diagnosis that I had, and I had to encourage them. It's early on. My diagnosis is a lot different than your mother's. So really kind of being there and sitting with them during that and just encouraging them that my story is not your mother's story. And sorry, still teary-eyed.
No.
Um, but
I'm teary-eyed. I'm just, that this is a big deal, and it absolutely needs to be talked about, because that's just so much for everyone to take in. That's a big
yeah,
deal. And
it
I
really
really appreciate your sharing that story.
yeah, it was really hard for the girls. And they each processed it differently. Because everybody's differently in their grief, in their trauma, and processing. So, just sitting there being with them in it, and it was also hard on my husband.
I was just going to bring that up. Your husband. So his wife dies of breast cancer. He marries someone and
Hmm.
2 years later gets breast cancer. So you and your husband actually had to take those in sickness and in health very seriously from very early on, right?
Very much, yeah. And to go through so many traumas all at once as a married couple too. We got the girls living with us a month after we were married, and so trying to help them process their grief. And we'd moved into a new home so they could stay in their school district. And then everything's lost in the fire. Then I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was a lot that we were processing. And so when I got my diagnosis, it was really just kind of that implosion.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's deep, and it is, oh my God, yeah, I'm a little teary-eyed here now too. So what was your specific diagnosis? What were your treatments? What did all of that look like?
Sure. So I was diagnosed very early on. I'd gone in for my normal mammogram screening. I was 43 years old, and I'd started my mammograms when I was 40, as I should. And so I had prior mammograms to look back on as baselines. I'd also, in my 20s and 30s, I had noticed some breast changes. So I had gone in for ultrasounds, MRI. So I had a very good baseline going forward. I got diagnosed with DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, grade 3, and I think many people have heard from their doctors, oh, this is the good breast cancer. But, really,
Whatever.
yeah, is there really any good breast cancer? Nobody wants it. So,
Oh
and
boy.
mastectomy with immediate reconstruction. So I did implants. I'd already had implants prior to, so it was a pretty, fairly easy process since my skin had already had those. So,
Okay, so can you walk us through again? Know that you had some things that you noticed about your breasts very early on in your 20s. Is there any other reason, like how were you able to get them to actually pay attention?
sure. So, in my 20s and 30s, I just noticed that one of my breasts was looking larger than
Mhm.
normal. One of my breasts also, it was warm to touch. And then I was having some nipple discharge. So, really, just mentioning all of that to my doctors really brought their attention to it. So, I was able to have my ultrasound, have my MRI. Thank goodness it was nothing. It was, all benign. But still, just I advocated because I went to my first doctor and said, look, this is going on. Oh, well, I'm sure it's nothing. It's probably just hormonal.
Yep.
But just really going to them and saying, something's different here. I had a family history of breast cancer with my grandmother, but
Okay.
that wasn't my mother. It wasn't a first degree relative. So they really just kind of ignored it. But just kind of being aware of my breast. And then in my 30s, noticing some changes again. And I went back in and said, okay, you can pull up from my 20s. Here's my imaging, let's take a look. So just, I think breast health is so important, but it's not really talked about. Especially when you're younger, it's kind of overlooked and ignored.
And we're changing that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I want so many people who've never been diagnosed to be listening to this podcast because, I mean, for so many of us, it's not even on our radar if we haven't had breast cancer, especially in our 20s and
Mhm.
30s. I'm like, I never thought about that stuff ever, 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 ever. And I started getting my mammograms, I think in my 40s. I think they started noticing, I'm trying to remember how old I was, but I've
Right?
had 2 lumpectomies in the past that were benign. So I wasn't totally oblivious to anything before I got breast cancer, but definitely not in my 20s and 30s. And kudos to you for being able to advocate for yourself at that young age because not all young folks are feel like they can do that. And there's like this medical gaslighting and medical providers just blowing people off. The medical providers out there right now who don't do that, I am so grateful for because, it's amazing how many people I have spoken to and actually interviewed who were diagnosed in their late 20s and early 30s and even pregnant. And we're kind of pushed off and saying, oh, it's just hormones. Oh, you're just pregnant or whatever. So, yes, thank you for sharing that story about how important it is to pay attention to your breasts, even if you're in your teens and 20s and 30s. Yeah.
Definitely. I have some friends that I work with at Project 31 that were diagnosed when they were pregnant. So having the doctors listen to them and know that that's not just a pregnancy change.
Yeah. Well, so with that, what are you doing in your survivorship with your Project 31? And let's talk about all the things because you have some really amazing things going on. Do share.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So after I was diagnosed, went through treatment, I mean, really, I think it changes everybody, no matter if you want it to or not, it's going to change you. So I went from working in the operating room at the VA hospital. I really wanted to work with women who are walking through a breast cancer journey like I was and really help them advocate for themselves. So I went ahead and got my certification as a certified breast care nurse. Went to work in a local hospital as a breast nurse navigator. And I volunteered with Project 31 and at leading their support groups. And Project 31, I'm in Oklahoma, and Project 31 is a local nonprofit breast cancer community. And we have support groups online and in person. So I went to work for them as a breast nurse navigator, and it gave me the honor of not just working in the hospital where your time is limited with the people that you get to talk to. I now have the honor of being able to talk to ladies and, answer their questions and just have the time and the space to talk to them outside of the hospital.
So, who started Project 31? Where did all that come from? And then I want to come back to this important piece about sitting with people and being able to talk to them. Who
Sure.
started the whole thing? How did that all happen?
Sure. Sarah McLean is actually the founder and CEO of Project 31. So she started it. She's a two-time breast cancer survivor. And when she was diagnosed, she was in her 20s. So, newly married and just really processing everything with being diagnosed with breast cancer at a young age. And not really knowing who to turn to, not really having a great support system, because you have all your friends and your family members, but they love you, they support you, but if they haven't gone through breast cancer, really, it's hard to find somebody to talk to that really understands the journey that you're going through, the emotions that you're feeling. So she started Project 31 just really to work on the emotional and spiritual issues that were affecting her relationships, her marriage, and her ability to simply really get back to life. So Project 31, she started reluctantly because she was like, I'm not really one that wants to be an extrovert. And so she started it with one support group, which led to, before COVID, we had 11 in-person support groups throughout Oklahoma. During COVID, it really led to, as everybody had to do, shifting to the online community. So we now have online community, which is Steering Cancer in the Faith. So it really talks about breast cancer and our faith. She also has an online group, which is strictly educational, and then one for thrivers. So really, Project 31 is peer-to-peer relationships, it's mentoring, it's our support groups, of course, it's activities, it's events. We offer counseling scholarships. We have educational survivorship expos. So really helping to educate women and their families about their journey, their diagnosis, and also just really embracing the women where they're at in their journey from diagnosis to destiny, and then empowering them to live fully restored lives during and after breast cancer, and advocating for themselves, and not just for themselves, but for others as well.
That's amazing. I feel like it's so often I have people reach out to me to let me know that they have a friend or a family member who's been diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's like, where do they go? So Project 31 is something that they can connect with, right? Because it's not just in Oklahoma. People from all parts of the country can reach out and get that support and get a mentor. And oh my gosh, this is so fantastic, because I really, really felt so lost, even though I know that there was a lot of, support out there and resources. I just didn't know necessarily how to tap into them the way that I do now. So
Yeah.
that's why I started the podcast. That's why I started my nonprofit, is to be able to connect with people like you and other nonprofits out there specifically to support breast cancer survivors and amplify what is out there. So now that people know about what I do, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, my friend was diagnosed. I don't know how to help her. You're somebody that I could, I could have them reach out to Project 31." I love
Yeah.
it.
And, like I said, we have the in-person support groups in Oklahoma, but eventually we hope to spread outside of
Yeah.
Oklahoma for in-person support groups. But anybody's
Perfect.
join our online community. We have a podcast as well as a YouTube channel, Pink Ribbon
Yes.
Roller.
Tell us about that.
We have Pink Ribbon Roller Coaster, which I'll be interviewing you next for our Pink.
Yay.
So, just really trying to educate everybody. I think the more education everybody has, the more empowerment, because you don't know what you don't know. You focus so much, I think, on educating ladies. Thank goodness for hopefully knowing and recognizing, because the earlier you're diagnosed, of course, your chances of survivorship are so much better. But just really getting that education out there. And we focus a lot on survivorship. So, what happens after that diagnosis? What happens once you're supposed to go back to living a normal life? How does that look? So I appreciate everything you're doing for the breast cancer community. So thank you.
We all have like this similar purpose, and we all get to connect with each other. We all get to collaborate. We get to partner with each other. That's a big deal. I have some friends of mine who've had colon cancer, colorectal cancer. where, it's like, or even uterine cancer, that they need to have that support as well. I know that the breast cancer community is so big because so many people get it, but I just am really hopeful that these other types of cancers can expand their community as well. So I feel like when women have cancer, and I don't mean to leave men out, but we're just women,
Right.
so that's why I'm talking about that. But when women have cancer, it's a sisterhood, regardless of what kind of cancer we have. So this is very important. I want to go back real quickly to talk about your clinical care, because
Yeah.
you are so focused on making sure that you can spend the time with these people, with these patients. When is it that you realize that there was an actual deeper need for that clinical care?
Honestly, I think for myself was kind of twofold. I think sitting in the office, sitting in my doctor's office and hearing the words, you have breast cancer, and just the fear, the anxiety that came from hearing those words. So, even working in the medical field, being a nurse, the anxiety just shut your brain down and just really took over. So, I think so much of the diagnosis and the battle that you go through is a mental battle too, not just physical. And our oncologists really want to care for us the best they can, but their time, I mean, reality is their time's limited to how much time they have with us. I think, insurance kind of dictates how long they have in that room with us, and they're focused on treating the cancer. And the cancer is only a small portion of what we're really going through. We're going
Mhm.
through, emotional, spiritual, and who helps with that? So I think, when I was sitting in my own diagnosis, that really resonated with me. And then also going through a stage 4 cancer diagnosis with my father and with my girl's mother, I think all of that resonated too, because the doctors are there, but they can't focus on the whole person. And I know they really want to, but they're, like I said, their time's limited.
Mhm.
So, who helps with that? Who helps with that aspect? And that's where, as you said, not every cancer has the community
Mhm.
as the breast cancer community does. Women are social people. We need that interaction. We need that love and the support of our other sisters. And for my father, he didn't have that. So thank God I had that. And I remember walking into my first support group and just I bawled like a baby. I really did, because I finally found my tribe. I
Mhm.
finally found women that understood the fear, that anxiety, the emotions, because I had my family, I had my friends, they love me, they support me 100%,
Mhm.
but they didn't always get it.
Right.
Even though my husband been through it with his prior wife, and not everybody really got it. And I think as women, so many times we wear these different hats. So we're mothers, we're caregivers, we work a job, we're trying to run the household, and we're trying not to let our mask down and to really show our fear or our anxiety, because we don't want to worry those around us, and we want to keep on going and just keep that smile going. And it's hard, even as a bonus mom, it's hard to keep that going and not have the support of women who really got it. So I just walked in my first support group and was just bawling like a baby, because I was like, oh, this is what I needed, and I
Mhm.
didn't even know it.
Right. I think a lot of people don't know that, and I want to amplify the importance of getting that community support. In our area, we have Natalie Stevenson, who started Cancer Community Clubhouse. And I mean, that organization is amazing. I actually interviewed Natalie Stevenson probably a couple of years ago, but I see her, in our community. I have friends of mine who I have sent to to CCC and people who are just being diagnosed now who are starting to go there. I really do think that it's important for us not to just sort of hibernate in our own little world, because that it makes it so much more challenging to get through the treatment mentally and physically. And I do believe that having that community, and it doesn't have to be like a huge group of people, it could be just a group of 5 people or 4 people, or just, where you're going on a regular basis, where you can sit and talk about what is going on inside your heart and your mind, things that you cannot necessarily talk to your husband or your wife or your kids or friends. And it is important to be able to have that outlet. So I'm so glad that you found that community and that you have recognized the importance of having that kind of clinical type care at any organization like Project 31, or even in the hospital. When I was going through the cancer, I did not have anyone at the place that I was having chemo to sit and talk with. I believe that they have someone there now, so
Good.
which is great, and I hear great things about this person. But to have breast cancer advocates like us,
Right.
we are sort of the bridge, right? We are those people out there who are holding space for these people and helping bridge them into a community that they need. So, whew, my gosh, that's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah,
So your
definitely.
podcast, how often does it come out? How often do you release?
So we try to do every 2 weeks.
It's hard, right? It's a lot of work.
During the holidays, it was a little crazy, so that didn't always happen, especially with SABCS and right around the holidays. So we try to do every 2 weeks. I would not say that we're great at it, but we're working.
Well, you know what? I totally get that. When I started mine, it like literally 1 year after my diagnosis is when I dropped the first episode of Test Those Breasts. And now I'm just about to release episode 104. And I was releasing religiously every single week.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's a lot of work. And at some point, I was having someone edit them for me. Now I just edit them myself. And I
Oh,
really like editing them myself because it really makes me dive back into the conversation and really, really let it marinate. And I'm able to use my own creative autonomy to put things together. And so I definitely know all the work that goes into it. So
yes.
thank you for having that. Yeah.
Yeah, especially doing it
So
yourself. That's
yeah, I want to talk about a couple of things. I know that faith has played a role in Project 31 and the growth and even your own healing. Can we talk a little bit about that?
sure, definitely. So I would say, as far as,
Sorry,
you know, I
my
don't even
dogs
hear
are
them.
oh my God, they are right behind me coming in and out of the dog door.
Aw,
And I had given them a bone. I had given them each a bone earlier, and they're just like, I think they're fighting over it. Two of them. Okay,
I love it.
Faith, go ahead.
So, as far as Project 31, her background was ministry as well, worked in a church. So, really, faith played a role in her whole diagnosis, and then really played a role in starting Project 31. And I think faith has a huge role in our organizational growth. We just let the Lord direct us and guide us, and really any accomplishments that we achieve are for Him and through Him. And we just try to be prayerful of anywhere, any space that we go to. And I think the same is for myself. It's hard not to go through a breast cancer diagnosis, or really any diagnosis, as far as a medical diagnosis. I think, especially a serious one, it's really hard not to focus on your faith and not to have that faith. I feel sorry for people that maybe don't know that faith, but it was hard for me. If I didn't have faith during my journey, especially as the same time as my breast cancer and my house fire and, just everything. I don't think I could have really survived, at least sanely. I was just facing too many traumas and challenges all at one time. So I really had to call out to God and lean into my faith. And I would definitely say it made my faith stronger when I was walking through it. I remember walking into my house after the fire, and you walk around and you just smell everything, the fire, and you see everything that's burned and lost and all your memories. And I looked up on the wall and there was the outline of a cross, and the cross had burned, but there was still the outline on the wall. And it just gave me a feeling of, you're not alone. You can get through this. I'm with you. And I walked into my bedroom and I had a cross made of stone that was hanging on my wall by my bed. And walls burned, everything's burned. But the cross was perfect, not damaged at all, and still hangs in my house to this day. And just, it gave me a feeling that I could get through anything at that point, that I would be okay no matter how hard everything was. And that carried on through my breast cancer journey, where I knew God's got me. I can do this. And just really leaned into it. And that's played a big role into whenever I talk about my breast cancer journey. I think about Romans 5:3-4, because I think it says it the best, where it says, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And I just hope that my hope can encourage others through their journey the way that, I've had the hope and the encouragement through mine. So that really resonates anytime I'm walking through something that may be difficult, just knowing that, I'm given this challenge, but I can persevere.
Having some sort of hope, that must have been very powerful, and is powerful for you. So question, I mean, this is just to make sure that people know that, what kind of support, if someone comes to Project 31, is that something they can expect to have that faith-based? And is there also opportunity for people who are more spiritual, if you will?
Sure, definitely. Everyone's welcome. And that's the main thing. We don't shove Jesus down your throat. But if you find him along the way, that's great.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's different, of course.
Exactly. So we don't try to change anybody, but we have one meeting that we specifically talk about our faith. And that's in our online meeting, Staring Cancer in the Faith. So it's a wonderful group, but they have some wonderful conversations. But we also understand that that's not for everyone. So, our other meetings, we just tell people, if that's not for you, don't join that group.
Okay.
All the rest are for everybody. We have a few atheists that are with us. We have other religions that join us, and they all feel welcome and loved in our community. And honestly, I think through their journey, I mean, even if they're an atheist, or if they have a different religion, or if they're just spiritual, I don't think anybody's really turned us away if we've ever asked, can I just pray for you?
Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah. And I taught social studies for a long time. And so I taught about, the freedom of religion, and, like, I have no problem with anyone having any kind of religion.
Yeah.
And being spiritual, I taught some world religions, and I find that they're all very fascinating, but I also understand the respect of not pushing religion on people, and let people sort of find their own way in whatever way. So I just want to make sure that all people are able to come to Project 31 and find something for them, and feel comfortable, and, because I mean, and I love the fact that there's a place for people who, have that faith, and that's what they are looking for. So I appreciate that you have that space. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, so many times people think support group and they think, oh my goodness, it's going to be so negative. Everybody's just going to sit around and, boo hoo. And, but really, like I said, my first meeting, yes, I did cry, but,
Crying's
um,
good for you.
yeah,
Crying is healing.
yes. But I think also there's so much positive in support groups because we do education. We do, we may have an ice cream party. We do a lot of different arts and crafts because there's healing in that. There's healing in joy. There's healing in a group of just sitting around and talking and having fun and
Yes.
an arts and craft or even serving at a local, we've served at a local food bank. So, just doing stuff and getting back to who you are. Because I think so much of survivorship is, everybody expects you just to, boom, you're done. You're done with
Yep.
chemo. You're, oh, well, you look normal. So you should be back to normal. Why are you still having issues? Why are you, nobody's asking about my sex life and my dry vagina after, going through menopause. So
Exactly.
everybody expects you just to go back to normal.
Yep.
But, what is normal after you've been through that? It's changed.
Mhm.
The things have changed in your life. So you do have to find that new normal. And as a group, as a community, a lot of times you do come together and find that, hey, I can laugh through this. I can find joy in life again because cancer is hard, but there's also, I always call them my cancer blessings
Mhm.
because my cancer blessings are I found amazing friends that I never would have met. I found a new career passion that I never would have had, a renewed sense of faith that I might not have had. So there are cancer blessings that we just don't always see until after we've gone through that journey.
Right. Yeah, no, my favorite is, when people look at me and say, "Well, you must be, back to normal. You look so great. Your hair is growing back." But they don't see the inside, like you were talking about the sex life that changes, the dry vagina, and especially with menopause. And I was starting menopause, I think, right before, my breast cancer, at least some of the symptoms. And then, of course, I was experiencing other things afterwards. Now I have had a complete hysterectomy. But yeah, I mean, there's all of those hidden things that are occurring that people don't understand. And we're not like saying, oh, you just don't understand. So you're not even in the group. No, we want people to be educated. We want people to understand what breast cancer can look like, what it can feel like, what the signs are, when to be able to go in and talk to your doctor and advocate for yourself, and also understand what people go through during the process and after, so that they're aware, because sometimes it just smacks you up right beside the head. It's like, I had no idea. I want
Yeah.
people to know. And I also want to emphasize too, I want to go back to the crying part. So when we talk about, there's a lot of positive things as well. I always equate crying about something to be positive, because I think a lot of people just cry in private, and that can be a very freaking lonely place. And
Yes.
so when we go to those community meetings and we're able to cry about it and not apologize about it and actually feel good, it's a release. To me, that's a very positive space to be in. And that's just my thought about it. And then, of course, there are other emotions that we get to experience, like the laughter and the, heartfelt conversations, and art, whatever it is that, project you might be working on. But I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there because I just really think crying is such a release for a lot of people, most
It,
people.
it is. It's
And
therapy.
I also want to go back to your dad when you were talking about your dad when
Mhm.
he didn't have that community. I really do think that we need to amplify the fact that men also need that support. I mean, our society is so conditioned to believe that men don't need that, women are the only people that need that, and that is just not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs that community. Everybody needs that
Yeah.
support. And, you know, I also think of in the breast cancer world, the husbands and the families are going through it too. So
Yes.
the caregivers need the support. The kiddos need that support. And I know there's some great organizations out there that really help with caregivers, that help with kiddos. And, everybody really needs that community to know that they're not alone, to know that their feelings that they're feeling are where they're not normal to other people, they're normal to us. And it doesn't mean you're going crazy.
Right. Right. Yeah, because sometimes I was talking about the whole gaslighting thing earlier. It's like that you gaslight yourself.
Yes.
Why are you being such a sissy about all this? Come on, buck up. It's
Yeah.
just your breath. I mean, you have the good kind of cancer. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. It's been so nice getting to know you. I'm so glad that you reached out to me and that we were able to connect in San Antonio. I would love to ask you, what big piece of advice would you give to someone who's never had breast cancer?
Oh goodness. Yeah, there's so many things, but I would have to say get to know your breast. Know what is normal, know when there's a change, and really advocating for yourself. If you feel or see a change, push for screening, no matter your age. Often, young women, like we talked about before, overlooked and signs are ignored, but women are getting diagnosed as young as 18 years old.
Yep.
I just think you know your body the best. You know when something is wrong. And the earlier breast cancer is found, I mean, really, the better the prognosis. So just don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel. And if you're not getting a call back, keep calling. Know your body, know your breast, and be your advocate.
Also, I might want to add to that, Jennifer, is that I think it's really important, especially for young folks, if they are not getting that phone call back, or if they're saying, no, you're too young, or whatever it is, there typically are organizations in areas, can't, like we have Nevada Cancer Coalition, there's something in most areas where you can reach out to them and say, look, I'm 22 years old. I'm having trouble, getting my doctor to do a mammogram. I know something's going on. They should have the resources and the ability to help you advocate for yourself. So just because you don't hear back from your doctor, or they are dismissing, minimizing what's happening with you, and maybe your insurances too, because if
Yes.
your insurance is not paying for it, there are resources out there that can potentially help you get your mammogram and, take you seriously. So, yes, that's great advice. Well, awesome. Well, I would love to know if you have anything else to say before we wrap up today.
Really thank you so much, Jamie, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. And it's always a pleasure. And I'm excited to hear you on our podcast next.
Me too. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer, once again. And thank you for all that you do with Project 31 and your advocacy work. And to my audience, thank you for joining us on this episode of Test Those Breasts. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.